Hey friends, it's Abigail Luvisi. Welcome back to Judgment Free Zone. We need vulnerability and empathy now more than ever. I hope you are able to find room for more curiosity, self-compassion, and empathy for yourself and others while you're here. I show up so you can too. Hey guys, we're gonna jump right back into Kurundi's and my conversation. It's starting off exactly where we left off, so enjoy part 2.
Well, sit in that fear of why it scares you so much in that space. Because when we say she calls, to break that down, every living thing has a spirit, right? We have a spirit, the tree has its own spirit, the plant has its own spirit, right? And ayahuasca is a ayahuasca vine that's connected with a Kurundi leaf that has the DMT in it, but it has its own intelligence, it has its own spirit, right? And because we learn that we are separate, we are separate from the plants and the trees, we think we're, but we are all in relation, if we use it properly, it will feed us well. That spirit knows exactly what you need, right? It'll get into your body and do what it needs to do, like your herbs, the regular oreganos. All of it has a special spirit about it. The problem is, especially on this side of the world in the United States, we abuse things. So even with marijuana, it has a its own spirit, and it should be used sacredly. Well, my opinion, should be used sacredly instead of as a crutch. Use it sacredly in a sacred way, to uplift, and not just smoking because you're trying to disassociate and go somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a difference. So even me doing ayahuasca, I'm someone who didn't even know what ayahuasca was. I'm not a smoker. I'm not a, my vice was alcohol when I was in the military, and now I can't even do that. I was never a weed smoker. So I went from nothing to the mama bear,
Yeah.
ayahuasca. So when you say it scares, it's like, especially when you start talking about DMTs and all that, and still some of that scares me. And I've done the ayahuasca is considered the mother of all plant medicines. That's like the big one. All the other ones are the little ones under her. So I went from nothing to the big one, right? And some of the little ones scare me. What not? I won't even say the little ones scare me. I would say how it's used sometimes scare me. How people use it so like a recreational, because I've seen people, there's a balance of all. I see people who use it sacredly, and I see people who abuse it as well. Abuse it to a point where it's just like you just doing it just to be doing it, and there's no real reason, rhyme or reason why. That's why I say that's always, I think everyone can be called to ayahuasca, and I think everyone can be, but I don't think everyone will be, because everyone, first of all, won't hear the call, and the second one is not ready for the plant itself. When I embarked on this journey, when I stopped at year 2017, so now it's 2 years later, 2019, I have a full staff of therapists working with me. Things are going, and I get this call again. You have to leave. There's more. You need to go on like a quest, like a vision quest. That's what I call it now. That wasn't the language that I got. It was like, you need to go. But what you're looking for is not in the United States. And I'm like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with that? I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? So that was a couple of months. And I went to one of my friend's birthday party. And I went to one of my friend's birthday party, and it was just so happened, it was like his sister went to her birthday party, and it was just so happened at that birthday party, Zakia announced that she was going to tour tour the world with this group called Remote Year. And I'm like, you about to do what? she said, I'm going to South America, I'm going to Asia, I'm going to Africa, and I'm going to Europe with this group called Remote Year. And I'm like, so how do you do that? And she gave me the information, and I'm like, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. That showed up for me. And it was like, oh, I can do that. Because I needed a vehicle. I didn't know how I was going to get around the world. I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I knew that I needed to leave. So when I connected to this program, paid into this program, they pay for into this program, and they find you a place to live. Every month you go to a different country, they get your apartment, they do all that for you. You just travel.
Wow.
So I did that in 2019. So that was another level of trust, because that means I had to leave my business in the hands of other people. I had a manager, I had someone who was working with me, and I had to leave the business to someone else. And I left in December of 2019, and I flew to Chile. And and it was a year's tour. So I went to Chile. Then I went to, oh, my phone is like, whoa.
My phone was, I didn't get to tell you, but my phone started going off too.
Yeah. I went to, then I went from Chile, then I went to Peru. While I was it in Chile? No, I was in Chile, and it was a friend of mine who I'm into astrology as well. So like the horoscopes. And so since I was traveling, she said, let me do your astrology to since you're traveling the world, things you need to know while you're in this country and blah, blah, blah. And after that call, before she got the call, she said, oh, by the way, have you ever heard of the word, oh no, have you ever heard of ayahuasca? And I'm like, no. She said, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I think you need to look up ayahuasca while you're out there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I wrote it down because it's a funny name. Like, right. Spell it for me.
Yep.
And that night, after I came in from some friends, I went online and I Googled ayahuasca. And it was right there in South America. It was in Peru. It was in Peru. I was going to Peru next. And I went to the particular, a couple of sites, but I went to the site that I ended up going to, Namiakaya. When I read that site and I read about ayahuasca and I read about everything about it, that was it. Remember when I told you and I was in an energy class? Mm-hmm. The Eastern medicine, it was my language. I heard the language and I started to cry. The same thing happened again. I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I have to go to that. Yeah. My spirit was like, oh, that is it. That is why you're not here to travel with this group. You're here to go there. So now I'm in Peru. The retreat is in the jungle in Peru. I signed up for it because it was a waiting list. I couldn't get into that program when I was in Peru. So we left Peru and we went to Medellin, Colombia. So we moved there. I called the retreat center again. They still didn't have anybody. So I told them to take me off the other waiting list and put me on the March waiting list. And no, I told them to take me off the February, and can I come to the March? And she said, the lady who was in charge, she said, you know what? You're the most luckiest person in the world because we only have one slot left and it's yours. Wow. So I flew back to Peru. I left my apartment in Medellin, flew back. So I just had a backpack. So I sold everything here in the States. I sold everything here in the States. I left my business and went traveling with a suitcase and a backpack. So the suitcase that I had was still in Medellin. The backpack, you don't go to the jungle with a whole lot of stuff. You go to the jungle with some flip-flops and jungle stuff, yoga pants, that type of stuff. Went to the jungle in March. It was a 9-day retreat. Got there March 9th, 2020.
Oh man, I know where this is going.
Got there March 9th, 2020. My first ayahuasca ceremony, I experienced. Now, let me tell you what ayahuasca is to the
Yeah.
audience listening. Ayahuasca, again, is a vine and it's a leaf that is boiled together into a tea. The leaf has the DMT in it. The ayahuasca vine cannot activate without this leaf. So it's boiled down into a tea that the shamans bless over and work with. We got the chance to make that, so we got to see how it was made. We was a part of the making of that tea. So ayahuasca is at night in a place called Maloka. So we all sitting and the shamans are there with us all night. So I drinking this tea. So my first experience drinking this tea, and I'm not going to get into the deepness of the story, but the biggest part about one of the biggest things highlights about that particular ceremony, and I did 4 while I was there, was I heard the earth crying, and I can't even explain to you how. I heard a wailing. It was wailing. It was like a woman's wail, like she was wailing, like she was in pain. And I remember literally crawling to the facilitators there saying, "Do you not hear the earth? You know, do you not hear the earth crying?" You know, and they're trained to know that they just kind of let you talk and do what you need to do. And I was just bawling. Oh my gosh, the earth is crying. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It was just like my soul was crying with it. And that same ceremony, because it's all night. So that was one part of it. And then one part I remember when the shamans was going around singing Icaros. And Icaros is a song that the plant itself gives the shaman for you. So when they sit in front of you, that same plant, because they diet that plant, so they eat it, and in it, it gives them information, beautiful information. So the shamans, and so when they're sitting in front of you, they're singing your life song in front of you. So they're giving you the song of life for you. So I remember when the shamans was there, and I remember sitting, and I kept hearing, "You are a shaman. You are a shaman. You are." And I'm like, and when you're doing ayahuasca, you're not totally out of it. You're in it and you're out of it. So you coherent, but it's deep. And it's like I'm questioning, I'm like, no, no. So that was the first, and I won't get into the deepness of everything that I heard, but it was the mother plant was telling me, you will be doing this work. And I'm like, okay, no. And I didn't get that then. Even after that, I didn't even get that then. I didn't get that until later. But I was like, okay, no. But the big thing that I came out of that ceremony with was the earth was crying. So that was March 10th, 11th, something around that time. I did 3 more ceremonies, had other things. My last ceremony, we came out of ceremony the next morning, and we got the call. The facilitators had got the call, and that the world has shut down. COVID, everything has shut down. And we had 24 hours to get out of Peru, to get to your home, because they was closing down the airports.
I can't even imagine. Like, wow. Like, process. I mean, again, I have myself looked into ayahuasca a lot and these things because I am very obviously interested in it for myself as well. And I can't imagine doing that kind of deep soul searching work and coming out, because you call it gray days, right? Like after is kind of a mess.
It can be, you're still integrating what happened the night before.
Yeah.
So
So like finding out that, like, that just seems traumatic in
it
its
in itself, yes, because you're still in a daze from ayahuasca itself, right? You still
Right.
there, but then you hear this COVID thing, and you got to get back to your country as soon as possible, blah blah blah, and everybody was panicking. For some reason, deep down, I wasn't in a panic. I don't know why, but I wasn't in a panic. So everybody was leaving, and I was like, I can't leave. And I was like, well, I'm not going back to the States because I came here. I was told to come here for a reason. And I wasn't sure if that was all, that was it. Like, this is what you told me to come and do. Like, this is what it is. And I didn't feel like I was finished. So people was leaving. I remember I had an apartment in Medellin, Colombia. I was with a traveling group. So because I wasn't Colombian, they had closed off their borders to anybody who was not native to there. So I couldn't even go back to Colombia. So my apartment was there, my clothes was there, my roommate, all the remote year people that I was traveling with was either going back home or staying in the Columbia area, because you could stay there, but you just couldn't come through the airport. You could have stayed there. And again, at that time, this was March 17th at this time. March 7th, I'll never forget it. It's like 9/11 for me.
Yeah.
March 17th, 2020, everything shut down. And so now I don't have, the only thing I have is a backpack. Everyone else left. So the only ones that was left on that compound in the jungle was me and 6 other people. And the 6 other people was the facilitators and then the shamans that was in the, those were the only people that were left. And then the shamans went back to their village as well. So I asked the person who's over that whole retreat, just so happened wasn't there. She was back in the States. Her friend was back in the States picking up stuff. So they got stuck at the States.
Oh my
So
God.
it's just us. So she allowed me to stay. So people say I got stuck in the Amazon when I hear the story, but I feel like at the end of the day, I got really still. I end up staying there from March 17th. I still didn't know it was going to be long. I didn't know it was going to be as long as I stayed, but I ended up staying there 6 months.
Wow.
And so if you think about it, COVID, the world was shut down. Peru was different than the States. The country was shut down. You couldn't go out for grocery. You couldn't be on the street or you got arrested. Now I'm in the jungle. So I'm not even in the public part of it. I'm in the jungle. So I'm like in a world, between a world and another world
Oh my
after
gosh.
doing ayahuasca. And after month 1 or month 2, you don't know whether you're going to see your family again because you don't know what's happened with this whole COVID thing. But I'm going to
Mm.
tell you, Abigail, I was more at peace. I was willing to stay there because that's when the download, everything started to show. Because now there was no distractions. It's just you and nature.
Mm.
You and nature, because the outside world, you don't even know what's going to happen there. You sitting with yourself. And I was living in they call it tombos, and my tombo was in a tree. So I was in a tree house. I was up in the trees, living for 6 months with nature, with the monkeys and the everything else that comes, and
And the spiders I heard about.
and the spiders, and all of it. I became one with the nature, because I didn't know how long I was going to be there, and when you don't know, you give it all, and um God really spoke, really, that's where I started the shaman quest then,
Mm.
because I really started to hear. And that's when I heard it during the ceremony, but I didn't believe it. It was not until I was there, as long as I was. And that's when I started there, and another mentor was in my life, the one that I'm finishing up with in South Africa. Um, had connected with her, and yeah, it you can't make this up. You can't plan this. That's why I say it's a call, it's a path, because I can't make this up.
Yeah.
I don't know what 5 years is going to look like down the road. I can't plan this out. What I can do is stay grounded. What I can do is stay centered with God. What I can do is be obedient. What I can do is continue to work with people, one on one on their, you know, on their pain and their hurt and their traumas and all the things that people are dealing with, you know. And really help them in a holistic, whole way, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so everything has been a vehicle for me. Like one thing, the military was a vehicle to the next thing, from the next to this, the CNA was the vehicle to the massage therapy. The massage therapy was a vehicle to this work, and I don't know what's going to happen 5 years down the road. We could have a whole nother conversation and something else. I don't know. But what I do know is where I am and where I'm sitting, there's no questioning. If God was to take me tomorrow, today, I feel like I have fulfilled a lot, and I have been obedient, and I have found joy and happiness in my life.
Mm.
Someone asked me about being in the military and doing something totally different. I feel like the military life for me was the pursuit of obligation. I was obligated to take care of my family and those things. But this life for me is more the pursuit of happiness,
Mm.
finding my peace. That's why, I love Troy, just finding that, finding peace, finding my happiness, finding my joy, and living with that. And what shows up with that shows up with that. And it's been abundant.
Yeah.
It is abundant. Am I wealthy? No, but anything that I need, it shows up. Anything that I need, God makes a way that it show up.
Wow, you're amazing. You're something. Thank you so much for all of that. That's, oh my gosh, so awesome. So you're going to South Africa.
So I'll leave on Wednesday to go to South Africa to finish up my 3 year, almost, it's not quite three, it'll be 3 years soon, stint of studying core shamanism. And core shamanism it's a mixture of African, South American, Siberian, North American, different cultures. I can't say that I'm like more of that shaman practitioner. When you get into this field, you never call yourself a shaman. People call you shamans.
Hmm.
I'm just a practitioner that do the processes. I didn't grow up in the Peruvian culture and those cultures, so I can't. I've learned their traditions,
Hmm.
and that's what core is more universal, where you learn their traditions and work those processes, and it helps people with their healing. And the main thing that I'm really moving towards is epigenetics. It's really generational hurts and pains and the
Mm.
generational curses, and going more into the ancestral stuff. That's where I feel like God is taking me deeper into the lineage of the past, so that we can be better people in the future.
So how, you know, kind of going into ayahuasca, how would that show up for people? What would be reasons why you would go and do this?
Yes.
And what would you I know that I had shared a couple questions with you too, like what would be a good trip versus a bad trip, and how to
Yes.
set yourself up for a good experience.
Plug up my computer because it's about to die. So let me get
Yeah.
my cord. We
Yes.
don't want
Get
that
it.
to happen. Alrighty. So I'm gonna switch this around a little bit because my cord is short. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're okay because I can like cut this piece out. Like I can
Okay.
edit it.
Alrighty.
So you're totally
The
good.
lighting is a little different, but I'm gonna switch this around.
No problem.
Um, how can they know when they hear the call? I
Right.
think I think it's the same way. It's not something that it just comes out of nowhere. Usually it's in a way where somebody may have mentioned it. Sometimes it'll roll off the tongue with some, and somebody will hear about it and never even think twice about it. But then there's those people who will hear about ayahuasca and they'll search and they'll know. I can't tell you, you just know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for you. I would tell no one to do ayahuasca just because everyone else is doing it. Don't go and do this because it's a trend, or
Right.
really be called to it, because that's what happens when you're not ready for her, when you're not ready for the plant. It's not going to give you nothing. It's not going to give you nothing that you need, you know? When it's time, it's time. So when you was asking about good trip, bad trip, this plant takes you deep into your soul. It gives you a bird's eye view of who you are deeply, right? And if you're not ready for that, that can be a bad trip,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not ready for that. You need to be ready to really search this. This is what I want. This is where I'm gonna go. And she will be gentle in that space. Another way that people have a lot of bad trips is they go in fighting.
Mm.
They want to be in control.
I
You
feel like
can't
that's me.
you can't be in control with Mama Ayahuasca. She's in
Yeah.
control. So you got to let go. The more you fight, the harder it is. So, meaning you're fighting while you're on the tee, it makes your experience worse.
Mm.
Instead of you just coasting and riding the waves and really feeling what's happening. And sometimes people go into some deep, dark places
Mm.
because that's some deep, dark stuff that's happening within their soul that needs to be cleaned up
Yeah.
or forgiven or see it in a different light. There's people who've gone, who've been raped or all types of things, and they get deep down into that stuff and they come out seeing it in a different light so they can move on with their life.
Mm.
But they have to go back in it, you know? Um, I can't say what everyone experience will be because everyone experience is totally, totally different. Some people go and take ayahuasca and drink the whole time and don't get anything there. And when they get home, that's when it all shows up. And
Mm.
that's another thing. The ceremony is the ceremony, but the integration is the beast,
Huh.
because the ceremony is just that night or so. But what you get from ayahuasca, how are you going to really come back into your everyday life and integrate it into your world?
Yeah.
That's the hardest part ever, is integration
Mm.
and having the support with people to help you integrate through that. It's not the drinking of the tea. That's just that one night. Yeah, but it's what you get in that night ceremony. How do you take that, come home to your husband, wife, kids, your work, job, and integrate that and come back into reality? Everybody don't get to stay in the jungle for 6 months like I did. And even when I stayed in the jungle for 6 months, I didn't really get the good of it until I came home.
Mm.
It took me almost literally until I just went back to Peru in June to really integrate everything that happened 2 years prior.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, again, I've not done this, but I did do the Finding Peace retreat. And even that for me was like, I feel like it took me just until like last month that I feel like I finally have some kind of hold. And that was in March for me.
Right.
So I can't even imagine, I when I listen to your thing and you talk about the generational stuff and the questions you ask, like I mean, I've written down my questions. Like I know my questions.
And you
Um
know what? That's funny too. That's funny too, because I went with a list of questions. Ain't none of them questions because what I end up getting is so much deeper than because the questions I had sounded a little surface after I came from that. It was like it went deeper. Like Mama, I call her Mama Ayahuasca because she's the mother plant. So it's like she coming for real. She ain't coming with this little surface little stuff. She's going deep into the soul. And a lot of times we don't understand that what's deep in like in your soul. So for me, that those 4 ceremonies was about my call. Like it was about my path and how I need to show up in my path. You know, that's what that whole ceremony, that is why I was told to leave the States and go, because what my answers, what I needed to know was not in the States. Because every ceremony, I was thinking it was going to be about some trauma stuff that I had and some personal. I ain't get none of that. Everything was about, until the point I was almost kind of upset, like, well, I was hurt this way and this person hurt me. How could I? Mama Ayahuasca one was thinking about that. She was showing me how I need to walk this path of my life and how I needed to do it.
Yeah.
It was big stuff. Like, oh my gosh, like it's so big. I'm still chewing on that.
Yeah.
I'm still chewing like, me? Are you sure? You know? But yeah.
And she when she was talking about on the I'm afraid I'm going to say her name wrong every time I go to say Zakita. When she was Zakia, sorry. She was talking about her throat and I have this pain in my jaw, and when she said that, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like I was just so curious, like it made me so curious. And to the point where that is something that I've been working on personally, my jaw pain with my own body therapist, because I feel it like when these are on me, like this pain in my jaw. And that was one of my questions on there is like, why, like, what is this? Anyways, that was
I can tell you a little bit, go deeper in that a little later. This whole jaw thing and what that represents, and you know, just really finding your voice. Really, it's really about finding and you tightening down on some ideas. We'll go deeper into that, but definitely, definitely, it's a call. And how do you prepare for ayahuasca? If you are called, and by the way, before we go there, we talked about Zakia and this call. If once you give out my website, they can find that recording on my website, and it's called the Return to Love video. It's under my herbal and plant medicine, and you can hear the full video of what we're referencing. Also, preparing for ayahuasca is about cleaning your body. It's about eating properly, and we can also give them the link to the place that I went, Namiyakaya, and it gives you breakdown all the things that you need to do to prepare to come and sit with ayahuasca, because you want to be clear. You can't be drinking. You got to purify your body so that once you take the plant, because the plant medicine ain't with all that junk that all the grease and all that. That's when people really have bad experiences. So they got all this stuff in their body, so they're doing a lot of purging, and you're gonna purge, but sometimes people are just purging all that junk out of them first. It's like a physical purge, and then the other purges start to come, the mental purges and the emotional purges start to come. But you don't want to go there starting off with purging all this physical stuff when you're just cleaning your body. And again, know your reason why. Know your reason why you want to go. Don't go because everybody else is doing it. No, this is not the time. You know, why ayahuasca outside of the other plant medicines? I don't know. Maybe you're not even called to go to ayahuasca. Maybe you need to do San Pedro. That's another, and maybe it's mushrooms. Maybe it's the frog one. I don't know. It's so many ones out there. Like I said, each one has its own spirit,
Mm,
and each one calls you in a different way. Everyone may not be called for mama ayahuasca. You may be called to go and do a mushroom, or you may be called, or maybe you're not called to do any of it.
yeah.
It doesn't make you less than or worse than or whatever. Maybe you're just not called on that journey. It's not the journey for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting because Daniel and I talk about it. And, again, I was referencing that guy, Sean Ryan, who talked about who's went and did it. And to me, like this one, like I feel like ayahuasca calls to me, and he finds this one like really scary. And I know I said I'm fearful, but it's like, it's a different level of fear. Like I'm just afraid of myself at the end of the day is really all it is. So I just find that so interesting that like there are so many different avenues, and to lead into the one that be curious about the one that you're feeling called towards. It
Right.
was great.
Right.
Yeah.
Those, and those are things you want to think about when you're doing this. And every year, from there, I this is my first year taking anyone back to do ayahuasca. So next year I'll be taking a group of those who, if you're watching this, you're thinking that you may want to join me next year. I have not decided whether I'm going May, June, or July. It's going to be one of those months, leaning into June, when I'll go. And this time, like I said, I bring people with me so they don't have to go alone. I only take people to the places that I know, I trust. That particular place is like my home. Like I said, I lived there for 6 months. I know the people outside of the ceremonial side. When you're living with people who don't know whether they're going home, you really get to see the real people,
Right. Yeah.
and I trust them. So that's why I bring people back there in that way. So you can go to my website and you'll see the tab that says interested in herbal, plant medicine. Put your information in, and I'll give you all the rest of the details you will need to know once you've done that part of it. But it is a life changing experience. A lot of times people say it's like therapy. It's like 25 therapies in one night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll put everything in the show notes where you can get all of that information and get in contact with you and get connected with you, and everything Kurundi does is amazing, guys. So go check her out and get in contact with her, and
This
all the
lighting,
what's that?
sorry, this lighting is crazy. Certain different
But oh my gosh, I felt like I went on a roller coaster with you in this. Like I feel like tired and at peace. Like I feel like we literally went like this and then we went around, and then like now I'm just like, all right, like I'll just sit with you and like hang out. You're
Yeah,
amazing.
you are
I'm
too.
thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much for just being present and sharing your gifts and staying curious and being open. And you inspire me. And I'm just so thankful and so blessed by you. And I know you're blessing so many others. And I cannot wait to continue our friendship and get to know more about you. And I hope that you share more with me because I am so intrigued and just like in awe of you.
So thank you. Thank you. You motivate me, to just tell my story. And you motivate me, like we were saying earlier, doing these podcasts, just putting yourself out there. Sometimes, we're all, at the end of the day, we're all human, right? And I could have this amazing, people can listen to this interview and say, oh my gosh, you had such an amazing life, right? Or whatever the titles they can bring with it. But at the end of the day, I'm human. I still have my fears. And we've talked about some of those things. Like afraid to, speak up on certain things or have my own podcast because I'm, all types of stuff that I'm still healing within myself. And we all human, and every day we wake up and we just want to do it right. And some days we feel like we don't get it right. And then we, reset again the next day. Every morning is a new day to reset. And I have to remind myself of that because sometimes I could be very hard on myself. So thank you for allowing me to show up in this way.
Yeah.
Give me the opportunity to show up in this way and be able to reach at least one person. That's my thing. It's not about the masses, it's about if I can just reach one person and answer some things for them.
Well, you already did it because you did it for me.
Ah,
really. Thank you. Like, this meant so much to me, and you helped me. You gave me space to be curious. And again, like I said, I usually have an outline, and I didn't today. And I usually, because I like to be perfect, right? Like, I like to know what I'm going to say and what's going to happen and know where to lead it all. And I didn't. And I was vulnerable, and I talked about spiritual stuff that I don't want to necessarily talk about sometimes, and showed up and was vulnerable. And I thank you for giving me that space to do that and showing up with love and grace and compassion.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be in this space with you. And I can't wait to be on the sidelines cheering you on, continue right even now cheering you on, and not necessarily in the material world. That's going to be beautiful, but in your spiritual world.
Thank you.
Yeah, in your spiritual world, because it's people like you, Abigail, who become one of the best people in that space. That's who God is looking for. But He's looking for people like you who have questions and want to do it right and want to do. He's not looking for those perfect people who, He's looking for the ones. If you think about all the people he was with in the Bible, they was all imperfect people, murderers and this and that, because at the end of the day, their heart was good. Their heart was good at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm not a murderer, but
yeah.
I am not that, but I am definitely imperfect. That's for sure.
And that was the best one, but
oh man,
those who have murdered they have a chance with God.
Well, on that note.
Love us all.
Yes. Thank you again. Thank you guys for listening in. And I'll have all this stuff in the show notes for you, and tune in next week. Bye, y'all.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, friends, for listening in. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. If you'd like to be more involved in our community, hop over to Instagram and find me at Abigail Luvisi. Keep showing up. I will too. See you next time.